Good morning and welcome to this week's Van Ryn Compliance webinar. I'm your host, Rob Van Buskirk. I'm CEO and co-founder of Van Ryn, and excited that you're here. Excited you're here. We're going to go through today's session of AI Audits 101. As you know, we're getting inundated daily with new AI bots, new AI information, and all of that sort. And what we're going to go through this week is basically, what do we look like for AI audits? What does it look like when an organization has to go through an AI audit? And what does it look like for your organization to ensure that you're prepared and ready for an AI audit? So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's agenda, first of all, we're going to go ahead and go through why AI audits matter, when AI audit really is, and going from what is real AI risk to what we're seeing today to maybe some fake AI risks in the environment. And lastly, kind of wrap up how you can do this on your own. We're going to go ahead and introduce a kind of a checklist that you can go ahead and do this yourself versus how about having a third party like Van Ryn or another audit firm go ahead and go through and actually audit you, and then wrap up with a Q&A with everybody. So why AI? Why now? Why is this even an issue or even a thought right now? Well, as you know, AI is already in daily workflows. We're already seeing this in everything that we're doing. We're seeing this with Copilot. We're seeing this with Gemini. We're seeing this, with Anthropic and everybody. So we're seeing that this is the way. I hate to say it that way, but this is the way, kids, of what we're going to do and what we're going to see and how we're going to work. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go through that. Adoption is outpacing governance. AI is everywhere. I've been to a few conferences. You've seen it everywhere as well. And what we're seeing is people are actually just throwing it out there, putting it out there to the wind, and making sure that, hey, we're going to go ahead and be cutting edge. We're going to move forward, and we're going to go ahead and be ahead of the game. But actually, you're actually hurting yourself a bit without actually going through an audit and understanding what that looks like. Your auditors, your clients, and your insurance companies, they are there to make sure that you are actually catching up. They're going to make sure that you are actually doing what you're supposed to be doing and taking care of their responsibilities of protecting that data that you're entrusted with. In 26, AI oversight. Well, we're going to probably see that. I'm not sure as a federal level right now, but probably state level and EU level is going to start looking at what are you doing to govern your AI in your environment. So where AI is showing up today, we're seeing that in emails and documentation and summaries. We're seeing it in Gemini. Here at Van Ryn, we're a Google shop, so we see it within our AI. We see summarizing emails. I know Copilot can do that as well in 365, but then you have to be very careful on how you limit that data. You don't let Gemini or Microsoft digest and ingest that data. You want to make sure it's only for your team's use. Support calls and call handling. We know about 11 Labs is probably one of the big behemoths out there that actually is going through and actually using AI today, putting that on the front ends of a lot of the call center platforms and all of that, and even in your environments to make sure that what's going on with those call handling. I know I called Amex the other day, and Amex is now using that. And so is Delta for that front end calls. So it's very changing times, very interesting times. Scheduling, analytics, triage, all the way down into clinical and operations workflows. This is where we're seeing, from a medical standpoint, where we're getting a lot of information is getting ingested into large language models. And then from there, what's going on is we're using it actually for diagnoses. But where is that data going? Is it actually protected, secured, and encrypted like it's supposed to be or not? So what's an AI audit? We like to always kind of say, what is an AI audit and how does it relate to me? Well, an AI audit is a structured review of AI usage. It's not looking at your code. It's not looking at basically how you're changing the code to use AI. It's like, how are we using it within the environment to understand what that really looks like? We're focusing on the risk, the data, and the oversight of AI. It's important that you really have a governance committee to ensure that you know what you're governing, to ensure you know where the data is going, and have that oversight in the environment. It's going to produce those defensible documentation. So without an actual audit, without actually knowing where your data is going and where the data of your clients is going, you don't have anything to stand on from a legal perspective. So from a legal perspective, it's very important that you ensure that you have everything set and you know where everybody is and what they are and what they're doing. Those are the key pieces there. Next up is really looking at code and model reviews. Are we looking at the code? Are we looking at those reviews? It's not that. It's not that in AI. It's really looking at, okay, we're going to change the code, we're going to do things, but what does that really look like within the model reviews, and how does that really change? So what an AI audit really examines are the following. Is really looking at how are we using the tools and the models. So the key piece with this is when you look at the tools and the models, approved and shadowed. So the AI tools internally is how are we using AI internally within the organization versus the shadow. And when I say shadow, I mean those third or fourth parties, right? Your vendors, your folks that help you do your business. What AI are they using? How are they using AI? What are they doing with that? Where are they putting that information? Is it onshore? Is it offshore? Is it in their own large language model? Is it just shared? It's thrown out to ChatGPT, and it's just going out there and what that really looks like. Those are really key pieces in there. All right. Next, we're really going to talk about the data inputs. So the data input pieces is really looking at the PHI, the PII, and the sensitive data, even financial data, even your own financial data or your own PHI or your own information. What does that really look like? And how is that really working? We're looking at those inputs. We're looking at if it's regulated data or not regulated data and how that is ingested. I mentioned this earlier. Your vendors and platforms are key. What are your vendors using? What are your platforms that you're using really using, and what are they doing to ensure that they're protecting the data at all times, and how are they using AI? Because it ties all into that human review and accountability to making sure your teams are aware of everything and understanding what that looks like and understanding how we're using AI. And I kind of wrap this slide up really about policies, training, and governance. So it's really about ensuring, do we have the right policies? Do we have that training for the team, and making sure that they know what to do and they know how to use that AI. The AI and compliance frameworks that we have today are very limited, but there's only two, and I'm going to show you today. We have HIPAA compliance that regulates PHI and ePHI. Then there's obviously the SEC, there's the FCC, there's the FTC, there's all the government regulations on the financial sectors. But there's really just a few areas that actually have a framework. The old HIPAA security rule, it's 30 years old, but it's still the key, right? This is really looking at how the data is used. Do we actually have a categorization of all of our data? Is it encrypted in transit and at rest? Do we have multi-factor? Do we have the security around all of that? And making sure we have things of that nature. The SOC 2 Trust Services criteria is going to audit the controls, but it's not a full model risk. So the key with that is the audit controls is going to look at the controls, but it's not a full model risk. It's not going to really actually identify the risks in the environment and what that really looks like to your data and to the data that you're entrusted with. The 42001 and the high trust regulations and certifications, I should say, these are the only two true certifications in the environment today. The 42001 came out about a year ago when the EU pushed forward with their EU frameworks. And then the high trust AI certification came out just a handful of months ago. I would say today the 42001 is more mature. It is actually framed out. It is more secure. It is more mature than the high trust one. But if you are a high trust certified organization, just kicking up to that high trust AI really looked good. It really has a nice flow of certifications and ensuring that you have everybody and everything there. That NIST AI risk management framework is what we primarily, I can talk today, primarily use today here at Van Ryn Compliance. And this is kind of the key area where we have a NIST framework, and we take that NIST framework and we put it in VRC1, which is our auditing platform, and we go through that and we ensure that we have everything set, and then we can audit you against the AI risk and management frameworks. And of course, there's emerging AI regulations will be forthcoming. It's pretty wide open right now. I'll be honest with that. I think AI is the next big resurgence of the economy here in the US and the West, but you will start seeing some regulations around that. So that's what our team is here to do, is take a look at that and make sure that, so you're you as a client can ensure that you're dialed in and that you're protected and ready to go with that. So why does even AI, I get this question quite a bit. Why does it even matter today in 2026? So the AI audits, why they really matter and why they're really focused on are the following: is just really your clients are asking you, how are you using AI? And you actually need to put this in your sales brochures and in your information as like, what are you going to do? Right? How this is how we use AI in our environments, and this is how we use AI in our frameworks and in our companies today. Your auditor is going to ask you, not your clients, but when your clients are going through a HIPAA audit, a SOC audit, ISO or a high trust audit, they're going to ask you, as maybe you're a downstream supplier and a vendor, of basically what it looks like. How do you go ahead and make sure that you're protecting the data? Because your auditors are going to ask for that documentation, and you must have an audit risk report. That's a key piece that you got to do. Insurers, your insurance companies already have this on their list. And remember, insurance companies are there to protect themselves. All that legal language in there, all that legalese, it's all about basically saying, how are we going to go ahead and protect, Hartford from lawsuits and actually have to pay? So they're going to ask you about all your controls. How are you using AI in the environment? What are you actually doing? How is this data used? And then you have to show proof and evidence. And if not, you have a very high risk where you're going to pay it more, or what's going to happen is you're going to go ahead and get dropped as a client. Regulatories. So within HIPAA right now, we're already asking who approves AI use. How is that used in the environment? When we do a HIPAA audit, we're already tying that in. We're already tying AI into our own HIPAA audits to make sure we know who's doing what, and that in our audit reports, exactly who's using the data and who is actually where the data is actually flowing. These are some of the AI risks that we're seeing today in just the industry and in the environment. PHI is entered into AI prompts. It's already there. It's already set. We already know that PHI is going into AI. Every client I think we've audited in the last 6 months, they're using it in some sort of either ingesting from emails and marketing into maybe just going ahead and using it for other means within the organization. So those are key pieces. That's a risk that we're seeing. No documentation of AI assisted decisions. So you need to have a documentation of what AI is going to go ahead and audit. What does that look like, and be used, versus what does it look like when we have a human go ahead and go through the decision matrix, versus how we can do it as a hybrid. So one thing that I can always see is automated emails or marketing or phone calls or answering services of that nature, and that data is going to come in, right? And you need to tell your clients exactly, are they actually going to be using AI or listening to AI, or is it going to actually be a human on the other end? Those are key pieces. The training models and customer data, and I'm going to get to this last one here. There is the training models. You got to make sure are the large language models using your data to train their model. That's a key piece. You need to opt out of that, because you need to make sure, if they are going to use that, do you have proper BAs in place? B, you need to make sure that your data isn't just thrown in the multiverse, if you will, of large language models. That's not going to be good. That is not going to be good for your business. Plus, it could be considered an incident and or breach that a client's data is just thrown out there into the large language models. You've got to make sure your employees have those guardrails so they understand what's going on, how to use AI. Maybe it's really good for email marketing, but it's not good for doing clinical work, or maybe it's not good for actually diving into your financials, or maybe it's not good actually diving into any proprietary data within the organization or within your customers. And then not having that plan when AI output is wrong. They hallucinate. Humans hallucinate, right? What's your plan when it goes wrong? What's your plan when you have an incident? What's your plan when things are broken and not really working right? So those are the things that you need to have. You need to have that plan so you're ready to move forward on that. So we're going to go ahead and include we've kind of gone through what we've gone and what we're seeing, what's going on in the environment. But there's two ways to go. You can do a do-it-yourself AI self-audit, and I'll show you what that kind of looks like, and then we'll have some documentation for that. And then what does it look like when you have a firm do it, and some of those caveats. You got to know what AI tools are used. So within your environment, if you do an a DIY AI self audit, you're going to be able to go through and go, you know what? I know my platforms. I know it's ChatGPT. I know it's Gemini. I know it's Claude. There's Anthropics. There's tons out there. What are we using? Then I know how that data is getting ingested in the environment and how it's being controlled. Do we have the controls and data that goes in AI? Are the controls in place to protect that data? Are the controls in place to ensure that the data is framed within the guardrails of security and compliance, and that we know as as customers, as clients, where the data is actually going? Focus on this one for this year. This is one thing you can do or take away from this webinar is focus on your vendors. And remember, vendors are vendors, and strategic partners are people that help you actually achieve goals in your business. So that's how I always look at it. You need to make sure, where are the vendors? Where are they sending the data? Who is using what? What does that really look like? And where is our data going? And do we have the policies, procedures, and BAs already put together and all of that? Require human review of AI outputs. You need to check everything. So you are building your AI. You're building your AI library. Like even with 11 Labs, it's probably one of the big players today. You build the framework. In our AI here at Van Ryn, we build the framework. We build the KB, the knowledge base. We build that all information out there, and we verify that we're actually getting the right outputs from that. And if it gets wrong, how are we notified? Today, someone on our team goes ahead and gets notified, and then we have a human review of the output, make sure it's correct. Policies and training, policies and training, policies and training. Take that away too, right? From vendors to policies and training. Do you have the policy needed to go ahead and ensure that everything is dialed in and put together, and that everything is as crisp as it can be? How are you going to handle an incident, a breach? How are you going to handle the encryption of the data? And then obviously the training. Is your team trained? Is your team really, really trained and really set there so that you can go ahead and make sure that you have proper education for your team and they know what to do? These are key pieces. These are all things that you can do as an AI self audit to make sure that you understand what it looks like and you understand how AI is being used in your environment. And then this last one piece here is wrap up that incident response plan. That's a key piece. It is going to have hallucination. It is going to have wrong input. What's your plan? What's your plan when that happens? Just like a disaster recovery plan, if there's data issues or data problems, how are you actually getting your business back online? What are you actually doing with that? What does that really look like? And really have that plan for that. Now, there are some limits. If you do it yourself, right? It's good for awareness, which is good, but it doesn't give you the full picture. Identifies that early risk, but doesn't really show you exactly what's going on, because it's not a full audit by a third party. It's not defensible. And there's no external validation. Those are key pieces of understanding. Is understanding that there's no external validation, meaning you don't have an independent third party looking at your environment and verifying if you're using AI correctly. It's kind of like the closet analogy. We all have closets or garages. We put everything in it. They're all perfect, right? But if you hire someone to come in and organize your closet or organize your garage, they're going to do it totally different, and it's going to look way better. You have to have a third party independent validation, because that really shows the strength of that. So what a full AI audit delivers from just doing it yourself and going through that, it's really going to focus on a formal AI risk report. So when we do an AI audit, what we do is we go through 30, 40, or 50 controls, depending on the size and how we're using it. And you get an actual legal document that shows your risks, your mediations, and what you guys need to do to move forward as clients, right? The systems and inventory, vendor inventory. You got to make sure you have your systems documented, and then the vendors that you use, the vendors they use. So, for example, say you're using GBT for email and marketing, all right, but you're using Gemini to put together documentation on the back end for your clients, and then you have another vendor that you're using for some financial reporting, and they're using Claude. You need to have everything documented on the systems and on the audit tools, and the systems and the large language models, so the audit tools can go through and take a look at all that and make sure you know exactly where your data is and where it's really going. Data flow and risk mapping is a key piece. I know it's a lot. It's a lot of work to go through that, but the flow and the risk mapping is important. It's important to ensure that you know where the data is flowing through the organization and where you have your risk mapping and where that's all dialed in. And then you work and resolve those risks to that data to make sure things are dialed in and as tight as they can be. The governance and use policies. You got to have an AI use policy. We're already including that in our book of evidence and our policies that we put together. You've got to have that information and that documentation, ensure that you know exactly where you are and exactly how you use data. And then you can give that to your clients. You can share that with your clients. You can put it on your website. We're starting to see that as like privacy use policies on websites. We're also putting AI use policies on websites. So customers know exactly how you're using AI, because it's not only from that point, but it's important to have staff training and the attestations to make sure that you're really dialed in and you're really set to know how your training, so your staff knows how you need to use your training. um, there we go. Train your staff on how you can use supposed to use AI in the environment and what you do with that. Those are key pieces. And then obviously making sure all your documentation is tied together. As a client of Van Ryn, we use VRC1, which is our proprietary platform. All the data resides there. Heck, you could still put it together in a Google Drive. You can put it in a OneDrive, whatever drive you want, but make sure you have it all together and your team knows where to get that information. So here's kind of a comparison of DIY versus a full AI audit. DIY is only internal audit. We talked about that earlier. There's no third-party validation. Think of it as like an ISO, ISOC, or even high trust. You have to have a third-party outside team to actually do the validation and focus on that. It is defensible and repeatable. We come through, we do the audit, we write the report, we go through remediation plans, and then we do it again. We rinse and repeat. It has become a rhythm and not just a reaction. You want compliance to be a rhythm within your environments, because that's going to support your HIPAA regulations. So if you have any healthcare, and you do, everybody has healthcare in there, SOC 2, ISO, or high trust, you've got to be able to support those frameworks. And supporting those frameworks means you need to have a third party independent audit that will also scale with your organizational growth. So you've got to scale this compliance program to the point where it goes ahead and it takes care of and encompasses your AI goals and dreams. So, as we're kind of wrapping up here, what are some of the key takeaways that you can take away from this webinar? And thank you all for joining. We're excited that everybody is here. First of all, don't think about AI audits slowing you down. Don't think about it's just another layer of bureaucracy or something. If you're already going through HIPAA audits, adding in an AI audit to that next page is actually building out a great compliance program and getting you into a rhythm of how you're going to go ahead and audit and protect that data. Those are the key pieces. They create the clarity and the control. Those are key pieces. A key takeaway is you have to have a very clear vision of where your data is, what AI tools you're using, and then making sure you have the controls in place to protect that data. Start early. Don't wait. Getting things started and getting things dialed in is a lot easier than reacting later and saying, oh gosh, we had an incident. What do we do? Let's quickly get documentation together before we have a audit from a lawyer or a state or federal lawyer. We don't want to deal with any of that. So right now I'll go ahead and kind of move into a Q&A time. You can go ahead and I think you should have a button to be able to put in the chat or raise your hand. And I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has right now. Obviously, if you're unable to chat, you can go ahead and email us at hello@vanryncompliance.com or give us a phone call. I'll also be sending out a DIY checklist that you guys can use and everything here shortly, right after the webinar. So you'll have everything there. So I'll wait here for just a few minutes, short minutes, to see if anybody has any questions. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. I want to just say thank you. Thank you all for joining me today. Oh, I think I have one question. There we go. One question here from RJ is, what is the best way to identify AI use and vulnerabilities? So the best way to do that, RJ, is go ahead and have an audit. You got to make sure that you have an audit to understand where your vulnerabilities are, and actually ask your vendors where they are also vulnerable within the environment. Because from an audit perspective, if you don't know your where your vulnerabilities are, you know what's going on. And what I'm seeing within the AI realm is we're just thinking AI is going to solve all the problems and just go ahead and throw stuff out there and hoping it works. Those are the pieces that we're seeing. So, all right. Any other questions? So yes, another question we have from RJ is, how about a tabletop exercise? Can it give you the best look? So tabletops are really good. What we like to do, tabletops, Benny does those here on our team. He's really focused on that, where you sit down, you kind of do like a war room scenario. You're doing the tabletop, you're working through the AI, you're working AI checklist, right? You're doing that nest checklist, and you're validating and verifying how AI is used. So the tabletop is a kind of a sit down. It's fun to do them in person because it really gets people to disconnect from their day to day and really focus on that. But we can do them remote as well, where you do the tabletop. So then that gives you the best look at really what you're really doing in your with AI. How are you using AI? Also, it helps you build out disaster recovery and incident response plans, policies, and training to ensure that your team is ready to deal with AI and how you handle that. So, very good questions. Thank you. Alrighty, well, I will be mindful of folks' time. I really want to say thank you all for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. This recording will be up and ready probably end of the day or tomorrow. We'll also be sending out information on how to contact us if you have additional questions for myself or anybody here at the Van Ryn team. And thank you guys so much for joining. Have a wonderful day.